When a talented engineer's heartfelt bet to fix a motor leads to an unexpected, life-changing love. Ethan stood in his father's struggling garage, his hands greased and stained like his dreams. Every day felt the same in Maplewood, a small Midwestern town where hope faded like the paint on its aging homes. At 28, he was just another face, invisible to the bustling world around him. He fixed rusted motors for a living, but behind the gentle hum of the tools, he longed for something greater. The town was filled with whispers of wealth and success, but the echo of laughter and hope in the garage felt trapped in the past, like a ghost yearning to break free. Then came the day that would change everything. Mrs. Jenkins, ever the kind-hearted widow, strolled into the garage, her eyes sparkling with memories. "Ethan, dear," she said, voice trembling with nostalgia, "would you help me restore my late husband's motorboat? It's just sitting there broken and forgotten like a piece of my heart." In that moment, something stirred within him. He felt an unfamiliar spark of determination. A bet was made, and a promise was forged. With a bright glimmer in her eyes, Mrs. Jenkins handed over the keys to the ramshackle vessel, which clung to years of family memories like barnacles on rotting wood. As he stood there, he realized he wasn't just fixing a boat. He was breathing life back into cherished dreams, echoing the hope he clung to so fiercely. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notification from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As he started on the engine, greasy tools in hand, laughter unexpectedly spilled from the open garage door. Sarah, a spirited single mother, stood nervously watching from the other end of the street. Just back in town after years away, she felt the weight of judgment pressing down hard. Would they ever let her forget the whispers that had followed her? But she was determined, especially for her young son. Ethan looked up to see her waving shyly, and something inside him clicked. As he called her over, they dove into conversations filled with hopes and dreams amid the scents of oil and gasoline. With every turn of the wrench, they grew closer, two souls entwined in a world demanding perfection, their shared laughter a rebellion against the tides of disdain that loomed around them. Yet, the town's murmurs loomed thicker than ever, each bitter word a cutting reminder of their status as Ethan, son of a mechanic, and Sarah, a woman haunted by her past. Just as the boat's engine began to take form, the weight of judgment pushed down, threatening to push their newfound bond apart. Ethan felt the ache of being on display, caught between pride in his craft and the judgment of a past rooted deep in class divides. The heated confrontation erupted at the town center one evening, and his very worth was publicly challenged, dredging up insecurities he thought he deburied. Sarah, caught in the crossfire, grappled with the turbulence of her own feelings for Ethan amidst the noise of town that never truly saw them. As friendships frayed and the tension mounted, Ethan stood at a crossroads, wrestling with the question that would define him. Would he allow the whispers of the town to drown his spirit, or would he fight for the love blooming between him and Sarah? Their journey was just beginning, and as twilight cast long shadows, little did he know that fate had one more surprise in store, waiting just beyond the horizon. Ethan could feel the tension in the air like a tight string ready to snap. He stood in front of the half-finished motorboat, tools scattered around him, an unfinished project that now felt like a reflection of the turmoil in his heart. His hands were covered in grease, but they trembled with uncertainty as thoughts of Sarah echoed in his mind. She had been nothing short of a bolt of lightning in his life, refreshing, unexpected, and illuminating the darkest corners he hadn't dared to explore. Yet the whispers from the townsfolk haunted him still, a constant reminder of the barriers they faced. He took a deep breath, trying to push aside the doubt, forcing himself to focus on the boat, the only real promise of change he had. As he tightened the final screws, Sarah appeared again, her weary eyes sparkling despite the weight of her own past. "How's it coming along?" she asked, her voice mingling with the subtle scent of fresh paint and oil. "Almost there," he replied, a smile breaking through, buoyed by her presence. "Just need to get this baby running to take you and Jacob out on the water." Her laughter rang out, light and hopeful, cutting through the tension. "I can't wait. Jacob's been begging for an adventure, and the lake is calling us." Ethan felt something shift inside him, a determination ignited by her words. As they shared stories, their bond seemed to deepen, the laughter weaving a beautiful melody surrounding them. But always, lurking just beneath the surface, was the undercurrent of judgment from the town. Their focus on status loomed like a dark cloud threatening to rain on their parade. Doubt crept in again, this time thick and suffocating. Ethan felt confident working on machines, but navigating relationships was a whole different realm. What if this was just another thing destined to fall apart? Later that evening, he joined Sarah at the park, where she had taken Jacob to play. Under the fading light, the two sets of laughter intertwined, the child's innocent giggles and the mature, nervous chuckles of two adults trying to find solace in each other. "I admire how brave you are," Ethan said, looking at Jacob as he climbed the jungle gym. "Not everyone can come back to a place that judged them." Sarah turned to him, her expression soft but serious. "It takes bravery to stand up and live your truth, no matter what they say. You know that too, right? You're doing just that with the boat." They locked eyes, an understanding passing between them. But Sarah's smile faltered, shifting into a worried frown as if she was wrestling with her fears. "But what happens when they don't understand? What happens when they pull us away?" Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand in his, warmth spreading between them. "They can't pull us apart if we don't let them." His heart raced, and he knew the stakes were higher than ever. He could feel an unsteady pulse of hope flickering in the depths of their joined hands. But could they really fight against the weight of the town that didn't want to see them rise? Just as Sarah opened her mouth to respond, a loud clap of thunder roared through the air, sending a tremor of fear through Jacob. The sky darkened ominously, a storm brewing. "Come on, we should get inside," Sarah suggested, pulling her son close, worry etching lines across her brow. Ethan felt his chest tighten. A storm was coming, not just in the sky, but in their lives too. What if we can weather it together? He pressed, desperate for assurance, but fear crept back as the first drops of rain began to patter against the pavement. He stood, caught between the lingering warmth of their connection and the fear of what tomorrow might bring. Could they truly fend off the storm that threatened to burst forth? And could he find the courage to defy not just the town, but his own insecurities? The heavens opened wide, each raindrop echoing the storm within him. Would their bond withstand the tempest? Or was this love doomed before it truly began? As the rain began to pour, the world around them blurred into a wash of gray, the sound of droplets hitting the pavement a steady drum echoing his fears. Ethan glanced at Sarah, who pulled Jacob closer, shielding him from the storm with warmth and strength. In that moment, Ethan wanted to be that same shelter for her, something solid in a world filled with chaos. "Let us go," he urged, leading them toward the park's small shelter, a wooden gazebo that offered a slice of refuge from the storm. Inside, the air was thick with the earthy scent of wet wood and wildflowers, framing a strange sense of peace amid the storm. Jacob squealed with delight, splashing through puddles, joyful and innocent as he played. Ethan couldn't help but grin at the boy. His spirit was infectious. Yet, worry etched deep lines across Sarah's brow. Her gaze fixed on Jacob, but distant and worried. "Do you think we should talk?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the storm's roar, as she watched her son. Ethan hesitated. "About?" He shifted on his feet, the tension tightening once more in his chest, drawn to the heaviness hovering in the air. "About us," she replied, turning to him, eyes narrowing slightly as she sought clarity. I don't want to risk losing what we have because of what they might say. Or worse, if we're not ready." Ethan sank into the nearby bench, the wood cold and damp against him. He could feel the storm lingering around them. but it was her words that echoed louder in his heart. What if the storm lifts? What if we rise above the judgment? He looked right into her eyes, desperate for her to see the hope he clung to. Sarah bit her lip, and for a moment, silence enveloped them, only the sound of rain filling the space. It made every second seem heavier, charged with emotions unsaid. Her vulnerability struck like lightning, raw and powerful. It's just so easy to give in to fear, she confessed, pain threading into her voice. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to bridge the gap between doubt and hope. I know what it feels like to be scared, but what if we fought together? What if facing the storm is what brings us closer? Just like the repairs on the boat, it's messy and it takes time, but building it up is what matters. She studied him, an inner conflict flickering through her eyes. What if we try and it doesn't work out? But what if it's the best thing we ever did? The words were out before he could weigh them, a leap of faith he and T realized he was ready to take until that moment. We could be a team, just us against the world. We may never know if we don't try. And then, a flash of understanding sparked in Sarah's eyes, as though the rain had washed away some of her fears. Her expression softened, a mix of relief and intrigue intertwining. You really believe that, don't you? More than anything, he affirmed, feeling the weight of their shared moment. Then, just as their surroundings felt lighter, the thunder clapped again, louder this time, shaking the very ground beneath them. Jacob squealed in delight, clearly unbothered by the elements. I think that's a sign to get out of here, Sarah said, smiling, her voice a blend of laughter and relief. Agreed, Ethan replied, the tension in his chest starting to melt. Let us finish the boat and tackle whatever comes our way together. You, Jacob, and me. We're a family now, right? As they stepped back into rain, Sarah took his hand tightly, squeezing it just like the thunder outside, echoing their unspoken agreement. No matter what awaited them, this was their storm to face. But in the chaos of the rain, a flash of movement caught Ethan South, eye across the park, figures lurking, watching them from the shadows. The dread of the town's judgments clawed back into his heart. Sarah? He whispered, glancing at her. We might not be alone in this after all. In that moment, the optimism in his thoughts was eclipsed by a chilling realization. Would they really weather the storm against the lurking judgment that awaited them just a step away? Ethan's heart raced as he stared into the shadows. The figures seemed to loom larger, the outlines indistinct but undeniably present. They were too still, watching them. Do you see them? He asked, his voice low and shaky. Sarah turned towards the darkness, squinting as if that would bring clarity. I'm not sure, she whispered, but Ethan could see the fear creeping into her eyes. Jacob, blissfully unaware of the tension, continued to hop through puddles, the sound of laughter bubbling up, mingling with the sound of rain. Stay close, Ethan instructed, shifting his feet as adrenaline coursed through him. He wanted to protect them, but the cold uncertainty settled over him like a fog. Let us just keep moving. As they began walking away from the shelter, Ethan's mind churned. Who were those figures? Was it the town council? People he knew? The thought of judgment made his stomach twist. He should feel brave, but now the reality of their situation pressed heavily upon him. Would everything crumble before it even began? Ethan, Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. He turned to see her standing still, loss shadowing her features. What if they're here because of us? What if they've seen us together? He felt his heart stall for a brief moment, then rally strangely to hope. Then let them see. He burst out, surprising even himself with the urgency of his words. We'll show them that our love is worth standing up for. Love isn't something to hide from. It's something to embrace. Sarah's gaze softened, but the worry remained. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling. It can mean trouble for Jacob. People don't always think kindly about things they don't understand. They moved forward, but the shadows shifted with them, creeping closer, a storm of a different kind gathering at their backs. We've survived storms before, Ethan replied, forcing more confidence into his voice than he felt. We can get through this too. Together. A distant clap of thunder echoed, almost in agreement, and Jacob began to dance in the rain, twirling with abandon, blissfully ignorant of the weighty clouds gathering in the corners of their lives. Ethan watched the boy, the embodiment of innocence, and he felt something stir inside him, an urge to protect, to shield them both from the judgments of the world. But in the depths of his heart, another fear surfaced, a fear that if they didn't confront these lurking figures, they would always haunt their happiness, waiting to strike when their guard was down. Maybe we should face them, Ethan suggested, more to himself than to Sarah. If we're going to be a family, then let us stand together. Let us not run. Sarah's eyes widened. What if they confront us about our relationship? What if they take Jacob away? The desperation in her voice resonated with his own fears. Then we'll fight that battle together. I want to lose you or Jacob, he vowed, feeling the weight of his promise settle on his shoulders. We deserve this, all of us. I just need you to believe that. She looked deep into his eyes, searching for certainty, and for a moment, the storm outside felt like a distant murmur. But then, Jacob's giggle dispersed their tense moment. "Mom, Dad, look," he shouted, pointing just past the gazebo. Ethan turned, teeth clenched. What now? The figures were moving closer, and already he could see the flicker of recognition in their eyes. It seemed unavoidable. Now confrontation was coming, swift and unyielding. Was it foolish hope to believe they could weather whatever judgment approached? "Hold my hand," he instructed Sarah firmly, pulling her closer. Together, as they faced the figures, Ethan's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and resolve. They were on the brink, ready to confront whatever fate waited. But what was the outcome? That truth hung in the air, just as ominously as the storm above. Would love hold strong against judgment, or would it crumble under the pressure? The figures emerged from the shadows, slowly taking shape in the dim light of the storm. Ethan's stomach twisted tighter as he recognized some familiar faces among them, neighbors, people he'd grown up with. The warmth of their community had always felt like a blanket, but now it felt like a noose. "Ethan," Sarah said, urgency creeping in her voice, "we should go." But he stood rooted, defiance sparking in his chest. "No, this is it. We can't turn back now." Jacob, ever the innocent, ran a few steps ahead, utterly unaware of the tension crackling like lightning around them. "Look at the puddles, Mom. Dad, it's like a big pool." His laughter rang out, innocent and perfect against the tension building in the air. "Be careful, buddy," Ethan called, keeping his eyes locked on the approaching figures. The group slowly advanced, their expressions a mixture of concern, curiosity, and something darker that Ethan couldn't yet name. He caught snippets of whispered conversation, bits and pieces floating through the rain-soaked air. He wanted to scream, to demand they see the truth of his love for Sarah, for Jacob, how much this family meant to him. One of the figures stepped forward. It was Mr. Lawson, the town councilman. He was a man of authority, his brow furrowed as he took in the sight before him. "Ethan, Sarah, we need to talk about Jacob." Ethan felt Sarah's grip tighten around his hand, a tremor shooting through her. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice faltering but fierce. "People are talking," Mr. Lawson said, his tone grave, "about your relationship. They think it's wrong, and they're concerned for Jacob's future." Each word landed like a punch to Ethan's gut. Trouble was real, and it had come to their door. "Our relationship is not wrong," he declared, voice steady despite the storm in his heart. "Love can't be wrong. Jacob deserves a family who loves him, and that's what we are. We're his parents. Nothing else matters." The crowd murmured, their eyes darting among one another in a flicker of uncertainty. Were they judging? Were they questioning? "Ethan," Sarah said softly, desperation creeping into her words. "What if they take him? What if no?" He replied fiercely, cutting her off. "We're not going to lose him. We can't let fear dictate our lives." Mr. Lawson's gaze softened for a moment. The rain dripped off his brow, washing away pretense. "I understand you want to defend your love, but some don't see it that way. They fear change, fear what they don't understand. Then we'll show them." Ethan's voice rang out, cutting through the murmurs. "Let us educate them. Let us bring them into our lives instead of hiding. Our family is beautiful, and it deserves to be seen. Jacob's thrilled shouts echoed back to them as he splashed through puddles. That joy, how could anyone question it? But the worry remained etched on Sarah's face. "Ethan, we can't just throw ourselves into the fire," she whispered, betraying the flicker of fear in her heart. "Maybe we have to," he replied, pain threading through him. The storm thundered overhead as he turned to the crowd. "Are you going to keep hiding behind your fears? Or will you stand here as witnesses to our love and see it for what it really is?" The tension mounted. Ethan could feel every heartbeat, every breath, every drop of rain. Would they come to understand, or would they turn their backs? In that charged moment of silence, a shift occurred. Some people walked forward, others stepped back. One voice called out hesitantly, "We want to understand." Ethan squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, a glimmer of hope igniting in his chest. But his smiles began to crack through the clouds of judgment. Ethan noticed the others who remained still, their eyes cold and unyielding. What did that mean for their family? Would they be safe, or would more storms come crashing down? Ethan's heart raced with anticipation and dread, caught between the possibility of acceptance and the lingering shadow of doubt. The rain continued to pour, creating a relentless rhythm against the pavement. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest, a loud reminder of the stakes at play. He glanced at Jacob, joyously jumping through the puddles, unaware of the tension draping their world like a heavy fog. "Ethan," Sarah said, her voice cracking. "What if they don't understand? What if they don't want to come closer? Then we'll keep showing up?" Ethan replied, his resolve hardening. "Even if they can't see it now, we will help them understand." Mr. Lawson stood where he was, a steady presence now amidst the chaos. "You're asking a lot of people, Ethan. Change doesn't come easily." Ethan looked into the crowd again, a wave of emotions washing over him. Some watched with curiosity, others with skepticism. A woman he recognized from the grocery store took a step forward, her brow furrowed, as if wrestling with what to believe. "I've heard rumors about you too, but what's the truth?" "The truth," Ethan began, his voice firm, "is that love doesn't adhere to society's rules. We build a life together because we love each other, and we love Jacob. That's all that matters." Sarah's anxious expression softened just a little, encouraged by Ethan's passion. She leaned closer. "If we have to educate them, then let us do it together. But we have to be prepared for whatever may come." Ethan nodded, anticipation merging with fear. He took a step closer to Jacob, who was shouting with glee, seemingly oblivious to the encroaching reality. Ethan wanted to protect his son, shield him from the storm that brewed not just above them, but in the people they once considered friends. The crowd began to murmur, sharing glances, each word like a ripple in a pond. Ethan watched as a few more people stepped forward, echoing the earlier voice, calling for understanding. Others remained, shaking their heads, unable to let the love they didn't understand in. "Why are you afraid?" Ethan challenged, breaking through the murmurs. "What are we teaching our children if we can't accept love in its many forms? We ask for the same thing any family does: acceptance, safety, love." The rain mixed with the tears that gathered in his eyes. It wasn't just for them anymore. It was for Jacob. A collective silence fell over the crowd as they absorbed his words, uncertainty draping even the more supportive faces. And then it happened. A man from the back stepped forward. Ethan recognized him as Mr. Carter, a local mechanic. "I've struggled with this," Mr. Carter admitted, his voice low but steady. "But I see a good father, a family that loves one another. That's what we want, isn't it? To love and be loved." Hope glimmered in Ethan's chest. Would others follow? Would they see the man in front of them as a father, not as a target for their fears? Yet the moment cracked as another voice boomed from the rear of the crowd. It was Ruth, the town's self-appointed moral authority. "This isn't right, and you all know it." Her shake was fierce, stirring the tension anew, the coldness of old beliefs wrapping around her words like frost. Ethan's blood ran cold. "Ruth, why can't you see?" But she cut him off, her accusations spilling forth. "You want us to change our beliefs, to accept what's unnatural? What will that do to our community?" The crowd stirred, uncertainty rising like the wind before a tempest. Ethan's heart thudded painfully. He had thought he was gaining ground, but now Ruth, please, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising storm. All we want is to be a family. The tension surged again. Ethan felt the fear creeping in through the cracks of hope. Would they crumble under the storm, or hold firm against the wind of change? He took a deep breath, steeling himself under the tempest as battering. "Look at Jacob," he said, voice rising above the murmurs. "Love him. Judge us whatever you feel. We just wanted to grow up happy." As the crowd hesitated, weighing possibilities, Ethan could feel the storm of emotions within him crash into uncertainty. What choice would they make? As the rain poured and tension thickened like fog, Ethan realized the storm had only just begun. Would his family weather the backlash, or would they find themselves swept away in the tumult of fear? Ethan's heart raced as he faced Ruth, her words slicing through the charged air like a knife. Every beat echoed, not just with fear, but with a desperate need for understanding. He shook his head, willing the frustration away. "This isn't about you or me. It's about Jacob, about love." Jacob, still gleefully splashing in puddles, laughed out loud, his innocence a stark contrast to the tension swirling around. A small part of Ethan clung to that laughter, hoping it would bridge the chasm forming between their family and the community. "Look, I know this is hard," Mr. Carter spoke again, his voice quieter now, but steady. "I grew up thinking certain things, but watching that boy, I can't help but feel he deserves love. A family like any other." Ruth waved a hand dismissively, but her confident facade faltered at the growing murmurs. Were they finally considering the possibility? Ethan felt a flicker of hope that perhaps the storm would not engulf them after all. But then Ruth shouted back, her voice filled with anger. "There are rules, boundaries. If we allow this, what's next? Anything goes. Anything goes." Ethan echoed, incredulous. "What does that even mean?" "Jacob deserves to love and be loved without fear. Why can't we just respect that?" Ruth's face reddened, and she opened her mouth again, but this time the crowd interrupted her. "I want my kids to grow up knowing love in all its forms," Mr. Lawson said, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "Not fear, not division." He took a step closer to Ethan. "I'm with you." A small cheer rippled through the crowd, a sound so soft, so unsure, but it felt like an anchor in the storm. For a brief moment, Ethan allowed himself to hope. Perhaps there were others like Mr. Lawson and Mr. Carter, ready to rally for acceptance, but Ruth wasn't. He finished. "You can't just point to your child as a shield. This is about principles, about what's right." There was desperation in her eyes, and to Ethan, she wasn't just battling for her beliefs. She was fighting against a world she didn't want to change. "Right or wrong," Ethan said slowly, "life isn't as simple as that. What is right for me is to love my son without apology." He looked into Jacob's joyful face, feeling a warmth spread within. "We have to teach our children that love is limitless, that it transcends everything we've been told." Whispers flitted about the crowd. Ethan could see the struggle in their eyes, the push and pull between old beliefs and new realities. Will we let one person's fear dictate the futures of our children? Sarah added, stepping beside her husband, her voice gaining strength. "This is bigger than any of us. It's about how we move forward together. Blessed are the children," Mr. Carter added with gravitas, his arms extending as he encompassed them all. "They should never feel shame for the love they give or receive." That seemed to strike a chord. More heads nodded, people exchanging glances filled with uncertainty, but now laced with a tiny spark of hope. Still, Ruth pushed back, her voice trembling. "What about tradition? What about values we were raised with?" Ethan felt the heat rising in his chest. Tradition shouldn't stifle love. What kind of values do we teach if we can't accept each other, help each other grow? What kind of community do we want to be? Sarah echoed, a tinge of unyielding determination in her voice. One that shuns those who don't fit the mold, or one that embraces all its members? As the rain continued to drum down, the murmurs swelled. Some voices urged for compassion again. Others remained quiet, still battling with their own hearts. Ethan felt his pulse quicken again with the uncertainty of it all. Would acceptance prevail? Would they rise together to embrace this change? Or would fear drown out the hope blossoming within the crowd? He turned his gaze back to Jacob, who spun in circles, blissfully unaware. The storm outside raged on, but maybe, just maybe within this tempest of opinions and conflicting beliefs, a new dawn was breaking. Can we choose to find common ground? Ethan asked quietly, vulnerability in his voice. The crowd paused, faces softening as they connected to the love between father and silence reigned. Hearts hesitated before making their choice. What would the next moment hold for Ethan's family? Ethan held his breath as silence enveloped the gathering. The rain tapped rhythmically on the pavement, creating a soothing yet charged backdrop to the tension that hung thick in the air. He could feel the weight of every gaze upon him, a mix of concern, skepticism, and a budding desire for change. Ruth glanced around, her expression flickering between defiance and doubt. Common ground? With who? Someone who threatens everything I believe? Her voice was steady, but beneath it, Ethan sensed a chink in her armor. Ruth, Mr. Lawson took a step forward, his tone gentle yet firm. You said it yourself, there are rules. But sometimes, rules need to be rewritten. His words flowed like a gentle stream, cutting through the storm's roar. What if we could create a space where all children feel safe to love, where they feel they belong? As he spoke, faces in the crowd began to shift. Ethan saw nods of agreement, soft smiles breaking through grim expressions. Hope flickered like candlelight, fragile yet illuminating. Jacob, still spinning, caught sight of the adults, his laughter spilling forth like a song. His unpretentious joy seemed to cast a spell, pulling hearts together. Even Ruth's fierce gaze softened momentarily, as if she could sense the magic that innocence carried. Are we really going to walk away from this because of fear? Sarah's voice rose again, stronger this time. Our children are watching. Do we want them to learn to fear love, or to embrace it? I don't fear love. Ruth shot back, her voice wavering. I want to protect our community from what exactly? Ethan interjected, passion igniting every word. From acceptance? From growth? He took a step closer to her, his heart thumping in his chest. Look around. The faces you see here, they care. They love. They want better for our kids. At that moment, an elderly woman stepped forward from the back of the crowd. With silver hair cascading down her shoulders, her eyes twinkled with wisdom. Ethan's right, she said softly but firmly. Love is the best foundation we can give our children. I have lived long enough to see that love in all forms only enriches our lives. Ethan watched as the crowd absorbed her words. An audible sigh rippled through those gathered, punctuated by whispers of agreement. He felt a mix of hope and trepidation surging within him. Would they finally see the light? You talk about values that you were raised with, Mr. Carter asserted gently, but our values can evolve. They should evolve. If we're to be true to our community, it means embracing every one of us, just as we are. Ruth looked trapped, her eyes darting between the supportive faces and the laughter of her own children playing in the puddles. What if it all goes wrong? She finally whispered, vulnerability slicing through her earlier bravado. Every change comes with a risk, Sarah admitted, her expression softening further. But isn't that what love is about? Taking that leap, trusting each other, even in uncertainty? Ethan felt a tightening in his chest, a rush of emotion that warmed him from within. Maybe they could reach Ruth. Maybe, just maybe, they could change hearts today. Then, with a voice ragged yet full of resolve, Ruth let out a sigh. It's not easy. I just want what's best for my kids. I was raised believing in what's right. Ethan stepped a bit closer, and we believe that love is right. No one gets left behind. Let Jacob teach us how to love without limits. As emotions hung in the air like mist, Ethan felt his pulse race. This moment felt pivotal. He could sense the fragile web of possibilities weaving between them, tightening, waiting for a touch to pull everything together. "Will you even consider it, Ruth?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, barely able to contain the hope flickering inside him. In the space where silence enveloped them, Jacob giggled again, his voice a buoy amid the turmoil, pulling them all back to the innocence they sought to protect. Ruth looked down at her children. The storm inside her churned as she wrestled with unformed possibilities. But just as the silence began to crack, the sky unleashed a new downpour. The sound thundered, drowning their words in a rush of water. What would she say? Did she feel the love that everyone else could? Would the storm tear them apart? That question lingered in the air, heavy and uncertain, leaving Ethan anxiously waiting for her answer. What door would she choose to open next? The rain fell harder now, each drop splashing against the pavement like a heartfelt thud in Ethan's chest. He stood before Ruth, waiting, the world around them blurring with the deluge. Ruth's gaze shifted, her eyes scanning the faces of her neighbors. Unsure expressions morphed into glimmers of hope. Could she really change? Would they accept her if she did? The thought sent a wave of warmth through her, but it was still tangled with doubt. Ruth started, her voice barely audible over the storm's roar. She looked at her children, splashing with joy without a care in the world. In their laughter, she saw a vision of innocence that cried out for protection. Yet, a seed of longing sprouted in her heart, as well a longing for understanding, for connection that went beyond walls built by fear. Ethan took a deliberate step forward, closing the distance. "Ruth, just think about it. We all want the same thing. We want our kids to feel loved, to grow up in a community where they can be who they are without fear." The gathered crowd seemed to lean in, a collective breath held as they waited for Ruth's response. Even Jacob paused mid-spin, his bright blue eyes fixed on her with innocent expectation. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting the rain drench her face. It was cleansing, refreshing, and amidst the chaos, a part of her unfurled. "What have I been so afraid of?" The question echoed softly but insistently. When she opened her eyes, a change flickered across her features. For the briefest second, vulnerability reignited a fire in her spirit. "My parents raised me to believe love came with boundaries, but I see now that love should be limitless." A gasp of surprise rippled through the crowd. Ethan's heart quickened, the patchwork of hope weaving tighter. But what if Ruth faltered, her face torn? What if I open the door and it's not just love on the other side, but chaos? What if they get hurt? Isn't it worth the risk? Sarah chimed in, stepping forward. Isn't it riskier not to try? Love is a risk, yes, but it is the greatest gamble we can place. And it will teach them to stand on their own, to be brave in loving. Ethan nodded in agreement, his voice steady as he added, "And if we stumble, we'll catch each other. Together. That's how community thrives." Ruth's resolve was crumbling. Every protesting thought seemed to slip away as she took in the faces around her. Each one reflected a piece of what she longed for: acceptance, warmth, openness. Finally, she took a deep breath, her heart racing louder than the storm. "All right," she said, her voice trembling yet empowered. "I will consider it, but won't it be easy?" The crowd erupted in murmurs of encouragement, and smiles bloomed like flowers after rain. Like ripples in a pond, optimism spread among her neighbors as they began to see a new reality shimmering on the horizon. As Jacob twirled again, droplets splattering like laughter, Ruth felt a weight lift. She wasn't alone, and maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be afraid anymore. But just as relief washed over her, a crash of thunder echoed ominously from above. The clouds seemed to darken, and the wind picked up, swirling around them with an unexpected ferocity. "What is happening?" someone shouted, concern rising in the crowd. Caught between newfound hope and brewing chaos, Ethan looked at Ruth, her face awash with confusion. The storm's power no longer felt just natural. It mirrored the turmoil in their hearts. Would this moment of connection survive the gale, or would the storm tear them all apart? The question hung heavy, a curtain of tension as all eyes turned towards the brewing tempest above. What was the future going to hold? The wind screamed through the park, whipping rain in chaotic spirals. The crowd gasped, their collective breath hitching as dark clouds roiled above, echoing the turmoil that had surged through them just moments before. Ethan's heart raced, and he turned his gaze from Ruth's anxious expressions back to Jacob, who remained blissfully unaware of the brewing tempest as laughter a bright contrast to the storm. "Stay close," Ethan called to Sarah and Jacob, gathering them closer. He felt the need to protect them, to shield them from the storm both in the sky and in the hearts of their townsfolk. "Is this the end before we've even begun?" he murmured under his breath, the weight of despair creeping back in. Yet suddenly, amidst the thunder and rain, Ruth stepped forward, her brow furrowed yet determined. "This storm is a sign," she declared, forcing her voice above the storm-s howl. "A metaphor for our change." Ethan's eyes widened. "Could it be? Change is never easy," she continued, the clouds rumbling, "but we can either let it drown us or rise with it." She looked to the gathered crowd. "I've been so focused on the chaos I feared would come that I forgot there is beauty in change." A murmur of surprise rippled through the onlookers, and the unexpectedness of her words seemed to capture the essence of the storm itself. "What if we face it together?" Sarah gently interjected, warmth radiating from her voice, stitching ties of hope. "What if, as a community, we can rise above the noise?" Ruth nodded slowly, her chin lifting. "Yes, together." Then, with a new resolve ignited inside her, she didn't just speak to Ethan and Sarah, but to everyone. "I will not let fear define us. Jacob deserves to grow up with love, not judgment. All the children here deserve to know that love has color, shape, and form because love has no boundaries." The crowd shifted, faces turning toward each other as doubt began to dissolve like mist in the sun. Ethan felt a surge rise within him, a swell of hope crashing against the walls of despair. "Together," he echoed, and raised Jacob high above the puddles, his tiny arms outstretched towards the heavens. "We can weather every storm with love as our anchor." As if on cue, the rain began to lighten, dropping from torrential downpour to gentle drizzles that glimmered like stardust in the fading light. One by one, hands began to extend from the crowd, a bridge of connectivity and compassion forming. "We can do this together," Mr. Carter shouted, the embers of courage building around him. "We need to embrace one another's differences. A family should embody acceptance and open hearts," added Mr. Lawson, stepping forward to join the movement. Ruth glanced around, her face transforming as more hands reached. Neighborhood friends she once distanced herself from were now lifting one another, cheered on by compassion and understanding. "Let us face the storm and emerge stronger," she proclaimed, hope shining like a beacon. The crowd began to rally together, embracing this alliance as they clasped hands, reshaping the storm above them into a watercolor palette of resilience. The rain fell softer now, as if nature itself was lending encouragement. Ethan beamed at Sarah, who returned his smile with unrestrained astonishment. "Look at them. They see it, Sarah." Jacob squealed with delight, his innocent laughter ringing out like music, reminding them of all they fought for. As the townsfolk united, a tranquil calm settled around them, the raging winds transforming to gentle breezes. "We have a choice, let's choose love," Ethan shouted, and their voices intertwined, echoing the sentiment. "Love binds us all," the crowd roared, this new mantra washing over the park like a cleansing rain. Beside Ethan, Sarah wiped away a tear of joy, feeling the weight of fear lift as she held his hand. "No matter what comes, this is our community now. We are the change." Ruth met their eyes, her spirit radiant. "Together we rise. Together we love. We will open doors instead of closing them," with joy bubbling in their hearts. The crowd stood tall against any judgment that had lingered, renewed in solidarity. Storms may come, but now they wouldn't face it alone as the sun broke through the clouds, painting the sky with brilliant colors. Ethan took a moment, feeling the warmth envelop him like a hug. The future was bright, and love would always find a way. The journey was just beginning, but in that moment, amidst the stillness after the storm, they were family unbreakable, undeniable. This was their beautiful, new beginning. Now, before this incredible journey grows colder and you find yourself missing out, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait, not even one more second. This is the moment to show your support. And hey, did you feel that roller coaster of emotions? Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement makes all the difference. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this heartwarming ending. We want to hear from you. And lastly, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. Your friends deserve to feel this joy too. Let us spread the love together because we are family now